Hi, and it's that time of week, the Spark Question of the Week. I'm Dani Palacio, and I'm the host of Awakingmoment podcast. And the Spark Question of the Week is an opportunity to ponder a question that maybe you haven't considered or haven't considered in a while. So for me personally, I have been watching TV shows that have genies in them, where you're granted 3 wishes. And the cautionary tale is be careful what you wish for. And you only get 3. So, to be clean, clear, concise, as specific as possible. But even as I watch these shows that this happens, it seems like nobody gets them right. And I don't know if there's a right or wrong, but it seems like there's always this, someone makes a wish and then the second wish has to correct the first wish. And then there's one last wish and everything is dependent on that one final wish. And so it made me think, if I had 3 wishes, what would they be? Would they be personal? Would they be community oriented? Would they be to secure this worldly quote unquote success? Or would it be more cosmic, more energetic and light and transformational? If you could wish that all beings were out of suffering, would you wish that? If you could wish for winning the lottery, would you do that? Some people, depending on where they are in their life, may wish for peace, and peace sometimes has a cost. And that's what these 3 wishes, this interesting way that this question came about, is fascinating to think about. When I was younger, growing up, I Dream of Jeannie was on TV. So it was a really popular show. And she lived in a bottle and she had a ponytail and she, put her hands up, crisscross, and then her ponytail, if you watching, you just saw me do it, but I'll explain it. So hands up, hair in a ponytail, and then she'd blink and push her head forward and her ponytail would flop over and then she'd pop up and the wish would be granted. And there were no limit to wishes on that show. There were unlimited amounts of wishes. And so I guess it just depends on, is the glass half full or is it half empty kind of perspective, right? Are you going to wish for logical things? I wish my car would get repaired. I wish I would meet the person that I'm meant to be with and fall madly in love. But what if all of that is not part of your particular divine plan? Or I've recently been learning that maybe it's curriculum. Maybe your soul signed up for curriculum. And as you know, we've all been to school. We might be in school right now, that there's curriculum. And when you sign up for a class, you can't change the curriculum because it's not in your power to do that. You either do the curriculum or you don't take the class or you don't move on from that class to another class. So imagine your life is kind of like that. And it's a pretty fun, simple, yet kind of complicated, odd question to ask. If you had 3 wishes, what would they be? And who would they be for? I think that's telling. I've been thinking about that. Am I wishing for myself or am I wishing for others? And why am I wishing one way or another? Am I wishing for myself because I feel like I deserve stuff that I'm not getting? Or am I wishing for another or my community or a class of people, women, people of color, to get us out of or to get us into something that we think is going to make the most impact or the best outcome for ourselves? I think all of that is important to consider when you're thinking about, if I had 3 wishes, what would I be wishing for? I apologize ahead of time if you thought I had an answer. I do not have an answer. I don't even know what my 3 wishes would be. I can share with you my kind of thought process, which was, I would want all of us to learn our curriculum with as much ease and grace as possible. I would want all of us to choose light and hope and compassion and love before and during our moments of fear, of anger, agitation. Want and wish for people to not have to live with regret because they made the decision that was true and right for them in that moment and they understood and they accepted that. I would wish that if you are in pain or you are suffering or you are at a loss and you are feeling out of control and depressed, that somehow a spark of light would come into your life. And for a moment, you would remember that all of this darkness, all of this heaviness, all of this burden will shift, will change. And personally, I've got people in my life that are dealing with medical conditions that are really heavy, really worrisome. There we go. And I want to be lifted from that. I don't want to worry. I don't want to feel burdened. I want to accept my boundaries and accept my capacity, and maybe even try and grow my capacity to be more spacious in my thinking and in my feeling. But how would you, like, I think about all the things I just said and I'm like, how would I word that to a genie who is magically going to grant my wish? I have no idea. So have fun. Have fun with it. You know, like I've read and heard stories about people that have won the lottery and how it was such a burdensome experience. They thought it was super fun when they were able to pay off their house and buy a new car and go on a around the world travel. And then all their people, not so close people in their life, all started asking, oh, could you borrow me? Could you give me blah, 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 and all of that. And that would be really hard to like have to sit with wanting to give people what they're needing, quote unquote, needing, and not being able to, or choosing not to, or I don't know. I think that would be a tremendous amount of responsibility. And I think the joy and the happiness of it might only come temporarily. I also have read stories, and this is a little more hopeful, that people that have won lotteries don't tell anybody. They just go on living their life, and they don't tell anyone. And I think that is awesome in some ways, because money is temporary. It's not going to buy you love. It's not going to buy you things that are probably the most critical to our soul. And so have fun. And if you come up with some wishes, I would love to hear what they are. So feel free to write me directly or put them in the comments. So I wish you all the best. Happy figuring out what your 3 wishes might be, and enjoy the exploration. Don't get too stuck on anything. I hope you enjoyed this week's Spark question. Take care.